You mentioned moving to Blackburn and Bolton,
Yeah,
that area, and moving school. Everyone knows you as, obviously your name is Owen Coyle.
yeah,
So how does that impact you in terms of performances on the pitch? So if things are going well, I suppose you're popular, but
yeah.
if things are not going too well, how did that impact you?
When he left Burnley to go to Bolton, that was a massive story at the time,
Yeah.
because Burnley took him from the Championship to the Premier League. I thought to the top division for the first time in 30 odd years. I think Burnley that season were favourites to get relegated. Out of nowhere, it was probably the first story of its kind of taking a club of that size into the Premier League. And he was a hero. And again, all the success and love that he had from the Burnley fans, who were amazing, was as big as anybody probably could ever experienced. And he went from that to then a few months later leaving to go to Bolton, which is a team that he played for. A team that at the time were making really, really good strides in terms of their own development in the training ground. Beautiful stadium and still have that beautiful stadium, and making good strides off the pitch as well, and historically been a really good team under Sam Allardyce and been in Europe 4 or 5 seasons before that. So from going from Burnley to Bolton, whilst it was a massive success in a way for my dad to make that move, it also came with a lot of criticism. And again, going back to being at school, my school was half Burnley, half Blackburn. So if you look at that, Blackburn fans don't like him anyway, because he took the rival club from the Championship to the Premier League. And equally, Burnley fans now don't like him because in their eyes he'd betrayed them and left them midway through the season. So being in that atmosphere on a day-to-day basis it was interesting. You got criticised, you get people obviously having comments just as you do as a kid, and probably not thinking a lot of it, but there's probably a lot to deal with. And then there's the whole social media lens as well, which at the time it probably wasn't as big as what it is now, but it was still relatively impactful. So again, criticism on there, targeted on there, which at 13, 14, 15, looking back at it now, you got like whatever, it's water off duck's back, but probably at that age, because I'd never been exposed to it before, it was eye-opening to cope with that. And I always remember from an early age, which it's not something I regret, I learnt from and I grew, but I always wanted to have my say. I always wanted to bite back and have an opinion, to try and defend my dad because he's my dad, or defend decisions or defend results or whatever it may be. Reality, that's not the right thing to do, which again now 15 years later you realise that, and that was a young mistake being a teenager, because fans are passionate, fans care, and fans have got opinions, and rightly so, and they're not always going to see it through the lens of maybe what's happening on the ground and those that are connected and around it on a day-to-day level. So me having that approach wasn't going to change anything, but that was obviously something that I maybe wasn't fully aware of or mature enough to understand yet that in those teenage years, but certainly learnt my lesson since.
Does that ever impact you as a whole? Have you got brothers and sisters?
Yeah, good.
Does that ever impact
sisters.
them, or does it impact the family as a whole?
I think my sisters and my mum, they I'm not saying they love football, but again, they've been so closely connected to the game the whole way through, but they probably disconnect a little bit in that sense. So they don't watch the games as often unless it's a big moment. They obviously came to a few of the games when we were working together up in Queen's Park. So they've got an interest. They want to know the results. They want to know how it's getting on, because it naturally impacts career opportunities and it cracks family dynamics and everything that go with that. So they're disconnected. So it doesn't really target them, or they don't get much exposure to that. My dad himself, he's obviously not on social media, so he doesn't really have a lot of contact directly with fans unless it's at fans forums or if it's within the stadium environment. The person that probably does have more exposure is myself, and that's obviously a choice that I make to be on social media. I don't think it becomes tiring anymore, because it genuinely is almost like, I'm blind to it, but if something comes through, you read it and it's like, don't spend any time thinking about it or even considering what it is. If anything, it just brings me awareness to his current position of what the fans' perception of him is. Now, if it's one fan, no problem. If it's thousands of people that are coming through, you're probably getting a bit of a feeling of actually how the wider fan base is feeling. And again, that doesn't change my approach to informing them or making them aware. It just brings me awareness to it, and just accept it for what it is, essentially. I think the only times that it does become more challenging if it becomes really personal, which where he's currently at now in India, even though fans at points have flared up as they do naturally, there is nothing personal that's ever within that. When he was back here in England, because of the locality and people know maybe more about the family and who you are, it can get personal at points, but again, you take it for what it is, you let it go, and you recognise that if somebody wants to go and really be malicious or be nasty within their approach. It's probably not somebody you want to be spending a lot of time around or
course,
even
yeah.
considering an opinion with all due respect. So, you just let that go for what it is.
So you mentioned your dad and everything associated with the roles he's had and the experiences that you've had, but you are your own coach and you want to make your own journey. So how do you separate that? Is there anything that you do that, from a mindset perspective, that you go, okay, well, actually, I want to achieve X, Y, and Z, and my journey's my journey? Or
Yeah.
did you ever feel that as a coach?
Yeah, for sure. I think coaching, even in personal life, everybody straight away, first questions, how's your dad doing? Is he still over in India, for example, at the moment?
We'll be talking about this now.
Yeah.
Epitomises that point.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, it's just something I'm comfortable with. I mean, I'm really proud of my dad. So what he's achieved in the game and continues to achieve is something that, as a son, I'm really, really proud of. So to be associated to him, affiliated to him, it's a compliment. And there's a lot of podcasts that happen and everybody's got a story to tell and everybody wants a soundbite naturally. So there's still a lot of even existing podcasts in the last few weeks come out criticising him about his management style or the way he coaches. But the one thing that everybody says about him is he's an incredible person. And I genuinely believe that. So how do I separate me from him? I try and be as authentic as I can be, naturally, and through the upbringing of him and also my mum. They have shaped me in terms of who they are and learnt behaviours and everything that goes with that. So I'm aware of that, comfortable around it, because they're two amazing people that I'm really, really fortunate have given me the upbringing and support they have, and love being a young person to even where I'm at today. What did I do consciously to try and change it? Well, I probably 4 or 5 years ago made the decision I was going to take Junior out of my name, because then everybody does straight away, or son of, which, I mean, everybody's going to assume that I'm connected having the exact same name, but I don't need Junior. Like, he's Owen Coyle, I'm Owen Coyle. We're both the same name, but both different people. So that was one thing I decided to do. But then away from that, it's just being yourself, creating your own path. The opportunity we had up at Queen's Park together, working hand in hand, was amazing. Being his assistant, we were a game away from winning the league and getting promoted to the Premier League, and Dundee pipped us on that final day of the season. So that was a real heartbreaking experience. But to be with my dad for that season, work in a professional football environment, take a team who had been in the division, that was their first season in the Championship, all the way through to potentially win the league, was a massive achievement and feat in itself. And at that point, when we left Queen's Park, we had the conversation. I said, listen, I'm going to go away and have a go at doing my own thing again. I would love to go and work with him again at some point in the future. I think we can complement each other really well. I think there's skills and attributes that I have that can help enhance his way of working and how successful his team would be, because there's a lot of things that he has that no matter how much I practice or work is him, and I wouldn't be able to get to that level that he does. So again, learning from him and being around that is, I think, a really, really strong ingredients to bring together to achieve success in the future. But I've made that conscious decision to go and have a bit of time doing my own thing again, which I suppose is a choice that I've absolutely loved, because it's led me to the opportunities that I've currently got, which again I'm really fortunate and really enjoying.
Gary Bowyer, was that?
Gary was there.
You know, it's the second time he's been mentioned.
Has he?
I spoke to Rudiger Stead. He mentioned Gary Bowyer signed him at Blackburn.
Yeah.
And now he's been mentioned again in terms of you.
I tell you what, Gary is a fantastic man. Gary, I actually worked, I'm not saying alongside, because I was working in the community trust at the time at Blackpool, and he was a Blackpool manager. Yeah. But the way he worked within the community settings, the way he worked above and beyond the role of a manager, I always remember really, really fondly. And then, again, 7-8 years later, we're facing each other in the dugout as assistant final day of the season, and they won that game. It was a thriller. It was weird the way it worked out, because it was the final day of the season, but it was just a regular league game. And the way it worked was whoever won that game won the league. So it went down to the wire, and they beat us. I think it finished 5-3 or it was 4-2 on the day. But it was a topsy-turvy game, a rollercoaster. I think it was 3 each at half-time possibly. But it's a bit of a blur, if I'm being honest, it all happened. But I also remember going back to Gary at the end of that game, the Dundee fans, because they won the league, rightly stormed the pitch to celebrate. But again, my dad, going back to his playing career, played for Dundee United. So they had a dislike towards him anyway, and fans are obviously, It's late at night, they've won the league, people are a bit excitable, should you say, and fans again directly came and targeted him at the end of the game and stormed the pitch, and Gary and myself walked with my dad off the pitch, and which again was a real show of solidarity, and it just shows you the type of guy he is. Instead of going relishing his own success and win the league, which was a fantastic achievement for them, he took the time for a minute to make sure that everybody from the staff at Queen's Park and the players got off the pitch, but particularly his colleague being my dad, They walked off the pitch together. We obviously went in the changing room. It was a bit of a sorrowful moment, but that was a small act. But yeah, he's a really, really good person. He's doing fantastically well at Bolton, and hopefully this season they manage to stay in the league as well. I'm tracking them following the games. I actually seen him a few weeks ago at Wigan, and just said hello.